Hey everyone, Cidsa here, with today's review of Corpse Party Blood Drive. Please be aware that I received review code for this game, however no money has changed hands. Thus, all opinions are my own. Corpse Party Blood Drive is the third and final entry in the Corpse Party series. What began as an independent horror game made in RPG Maker, the series has now spanned numerous genres and mediums, including visual novels, an anime, and even a live-action movie. Blood Drive is the sequel to the original Corpse Party that wraps up all the characters' stories. The way the game functions is very similar to the first game in the series. There is no combat to speak of, and most of the game is spent exploring the world. Blood Drive does add some extra features, such as a flashlight that requires batteries to keep running, and the ability to hide from enemies in certain areas. An interesting fact about the flashlight mechanic is that gamers in Japan requested that the game have an unlimited flashlight mode. This is also present in the English version. This can be activated simply by pushing the select button whenever you want. It certainly alleviates the tedium of having to look for batteries all the time. Of course, this does remove one of the only challenges in the game, so it might not be something you want to actually do. I also found that there was a bit more emphasis placed on keeping your health up. As this never really affected me that much in the first game, but in this game there are numerous times where I died because of this. Not only do you have to look out for your health, you also have to look out for something called the Darkening. This is essentially a character slowly going crazy by being exposed to too much horrific imagery. Simply progressing through the game causes your character to slowly darken, and this effect is sped up if you spend too much time looking at things more than once. This effect is reversed by finding glowing statues that are used to purify your character. These statues are few and far between, so it's often best to get through areas as quickly as possible without dwelling on the horror too much. While I can appreciate the effect they were going for, a sort of Call of Cthulhu kind of thing, it does have a somewhat detrimental effect when you have a horror game that actively insists that you don't experience the horror. And this gets at the heart of the issue I had with this game. While I was certainly eager to see the end of this series, it was disappointing that it just wasn't as scary as the first game. This certainly doesn't sink the entire game, as there's still plenty of stuff to really like about it, but I was really hoping for something really super scary to finish the series off with. The sort of Silent Hill 2 of the series, if you will. Now don't get me wrong here, there's definitely still some creepy and scary stuff in this game. Some of the descriptions about the horrific surroundings are appropriately disgusting and unsettling. I also have the feeling that those who aren't as experienced with the horror genre as I am might actually feel a little bit more scared than I did. I'm just to the point where if something doesn't hit Silent Hill 2 levels of terror, it's not going to be that effective at freaking me out. But enough about that, let's talk about the story itself. Corpse Party Blood Drive very quickly cements the idea that you need to be familiar with this series to get anything out of it. While it does give you some backstory, it really does nothing to introduce new players. If you haven't played the first game in the series at least, then you're going to be extremely lost. This game also makes references to other games in the series, as well as the various light novels. None of these are available in English, but the information is available in the Corpse Party wiki if you're interested. Thankfully, these references are kept to a minimum, so it doesn't have too much of an impact on the experience. Coming back to the actual story again, I thought it was well done, and a very good wrap-up of the Heavenly Host Saga. Things are resolved quite well, while still leaving other avenues open for sequel games, if those are ever made. It's almost impossible to talk about the specifics of the plot without spoiling anything, so I'll have to just say that I imagine that most fans of this series will be pretty satisfied with how things turned out. I can, however, mention that I thought they did a really good job of introducing the new characters and integrating them into the story. They feel like they've always been there in the background, rather than just tacked on. A really good example of this is the character of Occult. She was introduced in the second game, but really has more of a full appearance in this game. It is revealed that she is essentially the one that kicked off this entire debacle. She sold the info about the Sachiko curse to her friend Naho, who then put it on the internet, and that's where the kids in the first game found out about the curse and then performed it. Her addition makes sense, and really feels like a natural addition to the structure of the story. There are other characters in the game that are also like this, so I definitely want to give kudos to the writer, or writers, who made these intersecting story points really work, despite being created from rather disparate parts. Under someone else, this might feel really disjointed and forced, but it really works here. One thing that definitely had a positive effect on the horror aspects of this game was the music and the sound effects. These were always creepy and well suited to the mood of the scene, whether it was horror, comedy, drama, or anything else. The Japanese voice acting available in the game is also really well done. You can really feel the horror and terror in people's voices. This is certainly the type of game that can be especially difficult for voice actors, but the returning and new cast really hit it out of the park here. This brings us to one of the biggest issues of this game, and that is the visuals. While the hand-drawn character portraits and scenes are very nice as usual, the developers picked a 3D aesthetic for this game that unfortunately really doesn't work very well. It looks really old, is very poorly optimized, and really takes away from the atmosphere of the game rather than adds to it. It's really kind of baffling why they went with this style in the first place. If they couldn't afford really good 3D graphics, why didn't they just go back to the 2D graphics of the old game? Those were simple, but they were really effective. These just look clunky and slow the entire experience down. I mean, just look how laggy this feels. The lighting effects sure do look cool, but that alone really doesn't justify this. I'd probably be more lenient on this choice, but the fact that it makes this game take forever to load and just feels slow makes it just impossible for me not to knock it. Just look at how long it takes to load the menus. This will happen absolutely every single time, too. It's really just excruciating to see this kind of thing, especially in a game that runs off a flash card. Heck, even downloaded this game still has load times. So what did I think of this game overall? Well, it's really hard to say for sure. I mean, if we just take the sum of its parts, it's not that great. But being a fan of the series and really liking how it panned out, I can give it a lot of leeway for that. This is a low-budget, somewhat independent horror game, so certainly you have to be a little bit more lenient on it. But at the same time, if you're not a fan of this series, then I'd honestly have to say to give this one a pass. The graphics are bad, the load times are excruciating, and the story is absolutely not welcoming to newcomers. If you do have any interest in this one, go back to the first and see how you feel about it, and then come back to this. This one is a big fat for fans only, and only for fans who are rather forgiving. Hey guys, thanks for checking out my video. If you liked it, please hit like and subscribe to get more. Don't forget to check me out on Twitter and Facebook, as well as my live streams on Hitbox. Big shout out goes to all my patrons at Patreon. If you'd like to support me in making more videos, please hit that link on the screen. Bye bye!